الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So as we continue discussing the book Bulugh al-Maram min Adilat al-Ahkam by Hafiz Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, where we're discussing Kitab al-Tahara, and we're discussing of those chapters that he mentioned, all the bab that he divided into abwab, and we're discussing the bab Nawaqil al-Wudu, so discussing what he referred, the hadith that he mentions that relates to things that nullifies one wudu. So we're at the end of this particular bab, this particular chapter. So read the hadith that relates to what you have mentioned here, and then we'll comment on the hadith as we'll normally do. Bidnai ta'ala.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. The Book of Purification, Hadith number 76. Narrated Ibn Abbas, radiallahu an, Allah's Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, said, Shaitan comes to one of you in as-salah and blows air in his bottom. Consequently, he imagines that he has passed wind, yet he did not do so. So, if he gets that feeling, he should not leave his prayer unless he hears the sound of passing wind or smells its odour, reported by Al-Bazzar. And its basic meaning is in the Sahihain, Bukhari and Muslim, from the Hadith of Abdullah ibn Zayd. Muslim has also reported from Abu Huraira a similar narration. And Abu Sa'id narrated in a Marfu' hadith attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, if Shaitan comes to one of you and says, you have nullified your ablution by passing wind, let him say, you have lied. Reported by Al-Hakim. Ibn Hibban also reported the above hadith with the wording, let him say within himself.
So these are the hadiths that the author rahimahullah mentioned regarding matters pertaining to Nawaqil al-Wudu. So we'll read through the hadith and then we go through, so we'll read the hadith and then go through the further discussion regarding the ahkam that can be taken from these hadith. So the author rahimahullah, Ibn Hajar, he mentioned the first hadith of the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, أن رسول الله عليه السلام قال يأتي أحدكم الشيطان في صلاتي فلينفخ في مقعدتي فيخيل له إليه أنه أحدث أو ولم يحدث وإذا وجد ذلك فلينصرف حتى يسمع صوتا أو يجد ريحا أخرجه البزار. Then he mentioned a second hadith وأصله في صحيحين يعني بخاري Muslim من حديث عبد الله ibn Zayd. Then he mentioned again وللمسلم, also the hadith also of similar meaning is collected by Muslim, and I mentioned an Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu nahu, with a similar hadith. That hadith was mentioned before in this collection. Then he mentioned a fourth hadith. He mentioned Lil Hakim, yani Al Hakim, also narrated a similar hadith. And Abi Sa'id radiyallahu anhu marfu'an, going back to the Prophet alayhi salam, marfu'an, meaning that the hadith goes back to the Prophet alayhi salam. إذا جاهدكم الشيطان, that the shaitan approach any of you. فقال, and it is said to him, إنك أحدثت, that indeed that you have passed wind. فليقل, then a person should say in response to that, to respond to the shaitan, كذبت, كذبت, that you have lied. Then he stated, أخرجه Ibn Hibban بلفظ, that also Ibn Hibban have narrated the hadith. What his wording is, hadith, the wording is, فليقل في نفسي, that one should say this within oneself. So these are the hadith that I mentioned by the author rahimullah, that covers another of those matters, those things that nullify one wudu. And he discussed concerning the person where he mentioned tashkik ash-shaytan, that a person that having doubt regarding his wudu, is my wudu intact or not intact? We have somewhat discussed some of these masail before in some previous hadith that have been mentioned by the author rahimullah, especially mentioned the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu that was previously mentioned. So in that hadith that was mentioned, we discuss. So the hadith of so he mentioned that as for the first hadith, the hadith of Ibn Abbas that is mentioned here by Bazzar, where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, يأتي أحدكم الشيطان في صلاتي, that a shaitan will approach a person, a shaitan. So they mentioned that, then they mentioned the hadith goes on until it mentioned akhrajahu al-Bazzar. So Bazzar, I've mentioned this particular hadith in his, as they mentioned, is musnad. So you have a musnad of Bazzar that is called Al-Bar al-Zakhar. So that's the name of the book of Bazzar. And that book, that it comes in about 20 volumes. So that book of Bazzar, it comes in about 20 volumes. So I think that with Bazzar, so that's of those works that are there in the collection of hadith. Then as for this hadith, that there's some discussion regarding this particular hadith. So he mentioned this first hadith, that they mentioned hadith of Ibn Abbas. As for takhrij of the hadith, that they have stated that this hadith that have been mentioned here by, that is stated that with this hadith, that it can be found as stated here in the Bazzar, also at-Tabarani in his Kabir. I've mentioned it in Al-Mujam al-Kabir. I've mentioned this hadith of the ulama, who all the hadith that is mawkuf, it's a statement of Bazzar, and others who have mentioned the hadith, and I mentioned that, and also others who have said the hadith it is marfu. But those who even mentioned that the hadith it is mawkuf, a statement, mawkuf meaning a statement of the Sahaba. So al-mawkuf, either something that goes back to the Sahaba by way of their statement or their action, then that's referred to as mawkuf. But they mentioned that even though it goes back, those who say it goes back to Ibn Abbas, this hadith, they mentioned that the hadith hukmuhu marfu', that Ibn Abbas, even if he was to say this on his own accord or his wording, but the hadith will have a basis where the hadith that he have taken indirectly from the Prophet ﷺ. So they mentioned that hukmuhu marfu', that the hukum of this hadith will be elevated to be raised to that of hadith which is considered to be marfu', going back to the Prophet ﷺ. So you have that discussion. So another view, so that this particular hadith, that they mentioned there's some kalam about some of the narrators in this hadith of the ulama, all the hadith to be Hasan, that they mentioned because of one of the narrators who's, they mentioned Abu Uwais. So Abu Uwais, that Ibn Hajj, that ulama mentioned that is Suduq. So Abu Uwais, that they mentioned it is Suduq. So a narrator that they say a person have a Yahim, that is Suduq, a level of credibility, or Yahim, but he makes errors. So based upon this, some of the ulama, that all the hadith with other narrations that are similar that comes after, that a hadith as a basis, so that all the hadith to be, even the hadith by itself, is considered to be weak because of that narrator, Abu Uwais. But because that there's other narration that are similar and similar meaning, then the hadith will be elevated to that which is the hadith which is Al-Hasan. So the hadith will be raised to a status, a level of a grading of Hasan. So you have that discussion between the ulama. So as for the hadith, the second hadith they mentioned asluhu, the root, that the asl of this hadith, that this hadith actually goes back to Bukhari and Muslim, and that's the hadith of Abdullah ibn Zayd. Then they mentioned concerning that hadith of Abdullah ibn Zayd, the wording of that hadith that is not mentioned here by Ibn Hajj rahimahullah, that the wording of the hadith of Abdullah ibn Zayd in the Bukhari and Muslim, it mentioned concerning that shakka in Nabi alayhi salam, that a person complains to the Prophet alayhi salam, ar-rajul yukhayyal ilayhi annahu yajida shay fi salat, that a person that is imagining, is confused about something that he is feeling within himself while he's in salah. فقال, then the Prophet alayhi salam, he mentioned قال لا ينصرف, that a person should not abandon, not to leave his salat, حتى يسمع صوتا أو يجد ريح, that a person should not leave his salat until he have either hear a sound or he has smell an odor. So the Prophet ﷺ, he gave that instruction to the person. So they mentioned that this hadith is somewhat similar to that hadith by way of meaning. So they mentioned this hadith, so that's the hadith of Zayd, of Abdullah ibn Zayd, that is that mentioned. Then the second hadith, that is the third hadith is mentioned. They said, Lil Muslim, that Imam Muslim rahimahullah, in his Sahih, I've also mentioned this hadith, with the hadith goes back to Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu. And also this particular hadith was mentioned previously in this collection. This particular hadith of Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu that have been cited here, that the author rahimahullah have stated this hadith before, where the hadith it goes as follows, that he mentioned this hadith by stating the Prophet ﷺ قال إذا وجد أحدكم في بطنه شيء. If any from amongst you were to detect something in his button, in his stomach, فأشكل عليه, and he's doubtful about it, he's confused, he's doubtful about it, أخرج منه شيء أم لا, did something left him or not? So what the Prophet ﷺ mentioned concerning فلا يخرجن, that a person, it should not leave, one should not leave من مسجد, from the masjid, حتى يسمع صوتا أو يجد ريح. The person should not leave the masjid, which is the salah. So the person should not leave the masjid until he have hear a sound or he have smell an odor. And I mentioned akhrajahu Muslim. So this is the hadith that they mentioned here as being the third hadith mentioned by Ibn Hajar rahimahullah regarding this discussion. As for the fourth hadith that is mentioned, and that hadith in the Muslim. So the fourth hadith is mentioned in the Al-Hakim min hadith Abu Sa'id. Then he mentioned the Prophet said the hadith, and also there's a slight difference in the wording in the hadith of Ibn Hibban. As for this particular hadith, which would be that's the hadith of Al-Hakim, that there's some discussion regarding this particular hadith based upon the hadith of Abu Sa'id, this fourth hadith in the Al-Hakim, and also Ibn Hibban, that they mentioned the hadith, and this hadith is narrated upon Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. The person who narrates, the narrator upon Abu Sa'id, who is Iyad ibn Hilal, and Abu Sa'id al-Khudri rata anhu, that they mentioned that this particular individual, that there's some discussion regarding him. So you have some discussion regarding this particular narrator, Iyad ibn Hilal. So of the ulama, they have some discussion regarding this person, but they mentioned concerning the hadith also is in Abu Dawud and also in the Tirmidhi, with Tirmidhi rahimahullah, all the hadith to be Hasan. So so the hadith of the ulama who all the hadith to be Hasan, and also in the hadith they mentioned that Yahya ibn Abi Kathir, that yatafarrad. So you have those discussion regarding this particular hadith. So there's a brief discussion regarding this hadith. But overall, I mentioned that the hadith that have been mentioned, or the several hadith that have been mentioned in this particular chapter, that these hadith, that they have a basis, where you have narrations, riwayat, that are authentic in the Bukhari and Muslim, also Muslim, and also the hadith of Ibn Abbas, also even though it is discussed, but they all hadith to be Hasan or Maqbul. So based upon this, they mentioned regarding concerning what is being discussed regarding this particular hadith, that regarding concerning the person who may find some form of ishkal, or the person finds some doubt regarding have I passed wind or not, is his wudu, salat intact or not. So that's concerning this hadith, discussing this matter. So the hadith is discussed concerning the mawdu of the hadith, as Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan mentioned, the mawdu, the topic of this discussion, ما جاء في تشكيك الشيطان, that the shaitan put in some form of doubt within concerning the worshipper regarding his tahara. Am I in a state of tahara or not? As he mentioned, ما جاء في تشكيك الشيطان ابن آدم في طهارته. So shaitan putting doubt on the worshipper regarding is tahara. Is my tahara still intact? Is my wudu still intact or not? So based upon this, then the Shaykh, they mentioned regarding the next matter regarding after takhrij of the hadith, that the next matter is some of the wording of the hadith concern the hadith as meaning concern the person, that he mentioned that in the hadith, يأتي أحدكم الشيطان. So it said shaitan, that is being discussed concerning jinsu shaitan. So amongst the shayateen, that they are many. So the shayateen, that they are many, and amongst the shayateen, that they are many. So of the shayateen, those will attack those who are in their salat, and the musall and the worshipper regarding a salat. They mention fi salati, that a person while he's in a salat, that he'll try come and yanfiq fi maqadati, where it can somewhat, he'll make the person think, start to put in the person's mind as he broken his wudu or not. So they mentioned that did any form of wind was released from the dimension maqadatihi, which would be the bottom, the lower half of his body, did the shayateen yukhayyil ilayhi, where the shaitan will put thoughts in his mind. Did I lose my wudu? Did I pass wind? So these thoughts will come to the person's mind. Then they mentioned, so the Prophet ﷺ told a person in that case, that is, فَإِذَا وَجْدَ ذَلِكَ فَلَا يَنْصَرِفْ. If any of you were to put in a situation like this, then he mentioned, فَلَا يَنْصَرِفْ. The person should not leave his salat until حَتَّى يَسْمَ صَوْتٍ, until he have heard a sound, or he have يجد ريحا, or he has smell and odor. So that's concerned about the Prophet ﷺ instruction regarding what to be done in such case. And we can we have previous, or mentioned hadith of before, of Abu Hurairah, we have somewhat discussed of these matters. So the Shaykh, he discussed concern that the one who put these things of doubt in the worshipper, that is the shayateen. So the shaitan, that they're always trying to divert and the worshipper from his worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anything that he can use as tricks, any form that he can place doubt and to confuse the worshipper, then the shaitan, he would make use of these things. So the worshipper to stay focused and not to fall in the tricks of the shaitan, not to fall in the tricks and the deception of the shaitan. So so put in the person's mind, did I or did I not? And you find that at some people, afallahu anhum, that they fall into this type of waswas. They fall into what we refer to as waswas, where the person are very doubtful. They kind of somewhat lose their self-confidence regarding and have trust within themselves, regarding their wudu, regarding their salat. So they're always doubtful. Am I in a state of tahara or not? So the person in making wudu, that they'll take a long time trying to be very precise, and being precise, they just keep going the thing over and over again. So doing an act over and over. So the Prophet ﷺ kind of somewhat mentioned that these things can occur. The shaitan can have this impact upon some, but a way to overcome this, the hadith will mention, as we'll discuss, for the person to ignore the shaitan and to mention and seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the shaitan, and also whatever is being put in his mind, for the person to do not give this much attention, and to go contrary to what is being put in his mind by the shaitan, and use that scale. He goes with what he's certain of, and at that state the person is certain of his wudu, so he remain in a state of tahara until he's certain he has broken his wudu by way of he have smelled something or he have heard something coming from him. So the hadith of that we have discussed concerning ashak fil wudu, and we have discussed that matter before regarding the person having doubt in his wudu, having uncertainty in his wudu. What is what to be done in that case? Then a person follow the procedure as mentioned the hadith, or the guideline mentioned the hadith, which the person, the Prophet has mentioned concerning that, فَلَا يَنْصَرِفْ, the person not to leave his salat, not to see that he has, not to discontinue what he is doing, hatta, until he have heard a sound. So the person have with certainty that he have heard a sound of wind, or he has smelled something. So those are the guidelines the person follow, that hearing of something, so certainty will take precedent over a doubt. Then he mentioned next of those that is discussed regarding concerning that ashidat al-adawa li-shaytan lil-insan, that the shaitan is an open enemy to mankind and even the worshipper. So the shaitan is an open enemy to mankind, and you try to find any ways in which he can interfere with a person's relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he tries ways of people falling into shirk. He finds ways of diverting the person and trapping the person into bid'ah. He tries to put the person into matters regarding al-waswas, doubt, and then these things start to be elevated. So it starts sometimes with small matters, doubt, then it kind of some of the person then start to become very difficult, for the person find things difficult in doing things regarding his normal wudu, his normal salat. So the person start to open these acts, and then start to gradually maybe start to become negligent regarding his salah, because he finds it difficult. And then the person then the person will lead the person start to abandon a salah, and then the shaitan start to elevate those things. So for the Muslim and for the worshipper to be mindful of this. As Allah subhanahu mentioned, Inna shaytana lakum adu, fattakhiduhu aduwa. That a shaitan to you is an enemy. So take him as an enemy. So take him as an enemy. So the person as an enemy, that you have to be mindful of the tricks of the shaitan. You have to be mindful of the tricks of the shaitan. Then the next of the fawaid of this hadith is the way to overcome regarding al-waswas. So the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith give us a mechanism, a ilaj, a form of remedy regarding how to combat waswas, where he mentioned regarding that the Muslim does not take the Muslim said that for the Muslim to submit to the shaitan and to accept the waswas of the shaitan. So for the Muslim to resist these whispering of the shaitan by seeking refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against the shaitan, and for the person also, second also for the person not to act upon these things. One, not to act upon anything that he has doubt until he's certain of what to be done. So for the person to ignore the shaitan, so ignoring of the shaitan and the whispering and the doubt, and just do things as normal as one is able, and not to bend to the shaitan and not to succumb to the whispering of the shaitan. So in tahara, the person continue on. When the person have doubt, he continues on until he's certain. And for some people, if they have these waswas regarding their salah, then at times maybe to get someone to oversee you making salah. So if you can find a companion, someone who can oversee you making your wudu, that the person, but that person have to listen to the person that you have asked to help you or supervise you in making wudu. If the person tell you to stop, then you stop. If the person tells you to stop and you're still continuing to wash that limb, then that person will be of no benefit to you. And that person also, they would somewhat turn their back. The person might not be able to assist you in the way that you would like. And the person will get frustrated, and also you might get frustrated. So if you ask someone to assist you in making wudu, that for you, when you wash that limb and they tell you to stop, move to the next limb, then you should listen to them. If you're not listening to them, then Allah musta'an, they become difficult for both. To overcome the waswas, especially the person suffering from waswas. Then I mentioned the Prophet says, فَلْيَكُلْ كَذَّبْتَ, and also the person at times to say to himself that the shaitan is lying. So the shaitan is lying, so the person can somewhat bear this in mind, that the shaitan is lying to him and trying to trick him. So the person doesn't hold on to this, that the shaitan is just trying to trick me and to fool me. So that he's lying, so as you to continue in this act of wudu, having doubt and remain in that state. Also, they mentioned, so from the hadith of Abu Hurairah, the hadith had been mentioned regarding, compared to the hadith that was mentioned before of Abu Hurairah, that I mentioned that it shows regarding tasrih بأن هذه شكوك في الطهارة من الشيطان, that is type of doubts that a person may have regarding tahara and even their salah, that is from the shaitan. So these are things from the shaitan, that the shaitan, he wants to interfere with a person, the greatest act that can be done. The greatest act a person can fulfill is salah, as this is considered in Islam to be the second pillar of Islam. Bunya Islam ala khams, that Islam is built on 5 things. Shahada an la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, establishing a tawheed or risala of the Prophet Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, and the second is iqam as-salah, establishment of the salah. So the shaitan wants to interfere with a person performing salat, and his way of interference is by putting doubt in the person's mind regarding, am I in a state of tahara or not? So the hadith can somewhat clarify further that the shaitan is the one who puts these doubt inside the person's mind. And also clarify regarding أنه يبين محل هذه شكوك. Also the hadith, these hadith, that they also clarify regarding at what where this doubt it comes, at what thing that the shaitan tries to use to justify putting doubt in the person's mind, which is regarding the person's lower part of his body, which is regarding concerning passing of wind, then the shaitan tried to use this as a way to put doubt in a person regarding, did I hear right? Did I feel that thing? So he put it in the regarding concerning that the person's the lower part of the person's body. Then I mentioned that then also this hadith, these other hadith also they give concerning the ilaj wa makhraj, also give the way out and the cure for this matter of the waswas of the shaitan, the wisdom of the shaitan, which is for the person who can somewhat to deny what is being said to him by the shaitan, for the person to reject what is being said to him by the shaitan. So not to take hold to what is being said by the shaitan, for the person to dismiss it, not to act upon it, and continue through on what he's doing. Regarding his tahara, continue through. If he's in salat, continue and until he actually smells something that he believes, and what he smells, he believes that is from him. The person, he remain in his salat or in his wudu, the same thing, he considers himself to be in a state of tahara until he's certain that he has broken his tahara. So that's concerning of those other benefits that is mentioned in this particular hadith. So it is hadith, the author Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that he have ended the discussion regarding those that he titled Bab Nawaqil al-Wudu, matters that nullifies one wudu. So with this inshallah ta'ala, he mentioned in this particular discussion, he mentioned over 19 hadiths. So I mentioned over 19 hadith in this particular discussion. So over 19 hadith is being discussed regarding concerning this particular matter. So the author, he mentioned these hadith. Even though the author rahimahullah is said to be Shafi'i, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, then what is renowned in the madhab of the Shafi'iyah, amongst the Shafi'iyah, as in Muqtasar Ibn Shuja', that this book of the Muqtasarat, of the books of the Shafi'iyah in fiqh, they mention regarding concerning that he mentioned a chapter regarding Fi Nawaqil al-Wudu. So Ibn Shuja' in the Muqtasar, he mentioned Nawaqil al-Wudu, where he mentioned Alladhi Yanqul al-Wudu Sitta Ashya. So some of those Shafi'i mentioned Sitta Ashya, as in Ibn Shuja', others mentioned Arba. But he mentioned here, as regarding in the Shafi'iyah, what is considered in the method of the Shafi'iyah, as for those things that nullify wudu, he mentioned, as we just gonna mention this, as Ibn Hajar rahimahullah is a Shafi, he mentioned Ma kharaja min as-sibilayn, what comes from the private parts, the front and the back, wa nawm ala ghayri hayyat mutamakkin, and also sleeping, the person not in a upright position. Then he mentioned fourth, or he mentioned also zawal al-aql bisukr or marad, the person who have lost his sanity, lost his mind either by drunkenness or by an illness. Walams al-rajul al-mar'a al-ajnabiyya min ghayr hahil, or a man touching a woman is ajnabi, so a woman who's a foreign. So among the account of Ibn Shuja', if he was to touch his wife, then that's not a problem. But if he would touch a woman that is a foreign woman to him, not his wife or a family member, close by there, without any form of barrier, direct, then it nullifies that wudu. They mention وَمَسَّ الْفَرْجِ الْآدَمِي بِبَاطِنَ الْكَفْ. And also he mentioned that the next of those things that nullify wudu according to the Shafi'iyah, مَسَّ الْفَرْجِ, the person touching of his private parts. So touching one's private area, then according to the Shafi'iyah, this nullifies one wudu. Then they mention وَمَسْ الْحَلَقَ الدُّبُرِ, that also the person touching of his anus, around his anus, hala jadid, according to the method which is jadid. So those are the things that the Ibn Shuja' he mentioned regarding things that nullifies one wudu according to the ulama of the Shafi'iyah, wafaqahum Allah jami'an. So we'll end regarding concerning that. So the last thing to end with regarding concerning this matter, that or of those things that they mentioned, that Sheikh al-Bassam, when he discussed this hadith, that he mentioned of the qawahid that can be taken from this hadith, regarding these hadith that were mentioned, these four hadiths that were mentioned, he mentioned from this hadith, that mentioned al-asl baqa ma kan ala ma kan, of the ulama of qawaid al-fiqhiyah, that they mention regarding of those qawahid, that they mention al-asl, that the asl, the principle, so asl meaning a principle, baqa ma kan ala ma kan, so a principle amongst the ulama of qawaid al-fiqhiyya that something remain upon its original ruling as it is until there's something to say otherwise. Al-asl baqa ma kan ala ma kan. So the asl, that something remain as it is until there's something to say otherwise. So it remain as it is until you have something clear, convincing to say otherwise. فإذا كان إنسان متطهر, if a person in a state of tahara, فيخيل إليه أنه أحدث, and a person that, they mentioned that, so he mentioned the matter, the person that, it can somewhat come into his mind, that is where is state of tahara, ولكن لم يتحقق ذلك يقينا, the person has something that comes to his mind, but it's something that hasn't occurred for certain. قال فالأصل أنه باق على طهارته. So the person, he remain in a state of tahara, ولا يلتفت, and he does not give attention إلى هذه الشكوك والوسواس, so that he doesn't give any attention to this matter regarding doubt and also this whispering, that the sort of it goes back to the shaitan. So of those qawaid al-fiqhiyya. Also from the hadith, somewhat it indicates regarding that ar-rih, that comes from the anus, from the back, that it nullifies one wudu. That is a nullifier of one wudu, and we have discussed that matter before, which is an ijma' bayna ahli al-ilm. That's an ijma' between the ulama. In ending, that of those who have explained the book Bulugh al-Maram by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, that they somewhat have added 3 other masail that they believe were not covered. So 3 other masail that they wish to add that were not per se mentioned by Ibn Hajar rahimahullah regarding those things that nullify wudu, and these things that they wish somewhat to discuss. So one is aware. So having the awareness regarding these masail, which is 3 masail. The first that I mentioned, akl ma masatun nar, eating something that have been cooked. So eating something that have been somewhat been roasted or been cooked. Then they mentioned this of those masail. They discuss concerning, so something have been roasted or been cooked on fire. What's the hukum regarding that? They mentioned regarding this matter, they find hadith in the Bukhari with Muslim, and also in Muslim, we hadith in a Sahih Muslim, min hadith min hadith Abi Hurairah, min hadith Aisha, min hadith Zayd ibn Thabit, أن النبي عليه السلام قال توضأوا مما مست النار. توضأوا مما تمست النار. The Prophet in these hadith, he mentioned that in Sahih Muslim, that you should perform wudu for that which have been cooked by an-nar. So those hadith somewhat indicate that thing that have been cooked, then one should renew one's wudu. Then also we'll find a set of hadith also in Bukhari and Muslim, من حديث ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما أن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام قال أن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام أكل كتف الشاة. The Prophet ate the shoulder of a shat, of a sheep. ثم صلى, then he prayed. ولم يتوضأ, and he did not perform wudu, he did not renew his wudu. And also you find hadith that are similar, hadith of Maymuna, also the hadith of Amr ibn Umayyah ad-Damri. So you find other hadith also of the same meaning. So based upon these hadith, where some hadith mention tawaddahu mimma masat an-nar, that one should perform wudu for that which have been cooked by the fire, and also hadith with the Prophet that he ate after the Prophet ate cooked meat and did not perform wudu, but went straight to the salat. So they said from this that they find that the ulama that they mentioned in a khilaf earlier days among the Salaf, there was a khilaf on this matter. Then it is stated regarding concerning that, as stated by Nawawi rahimahullah, that it mentioned, as he mentioned concerning Nawawi rahimahullah in his explanation of Sahih Muslim, قال بعد أن ذكر خلاف متقدم, that is a khilaf that was there before. We find some of the ulama that they take the position regarding concerning that one is to perform wudu after something had been roasted, been cooked by fire. And they mentioned from the Sahaba who have taken that position, amongst those who have taken that position, Abdullah ibn Umar, Abu Talha, Anas bin Malik, Abu Musa al-Ashari, Aisha, Zayd ibn Thabit, Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhum ajma'in, who have taken a position that the one who, whatever has been cooked by fire, been roasted, then it is the person to perform his wudu. Then also you find a second position where of the ulama who takes that the case, that that does not see or believe that what have been cooked by fire, been roasted, does not need to, the one does not need to perform wudu. Of those who take that position, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Omar ibn Khattab, Uthman ibn Affan, Ali ibn Abi Talib, so that those al-Khulafa al-Rashidun, being of that position, then give that strength to that a notable position, and also others, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Abu Darda, Ibn Abbas, Amir ibn Rabi'ah, Abu Umama, Ubay ibn Kab, among the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, who take the position that whatever been cooked by fire, whatever been roasted, then it does not need, one does not need to renew one's wudu. Then Anna rahimullah, he mentioned, بعد أن ذكر الخلاف العلماء, or خلاف العلماء, after he mentioned that khilaf that was of old, of the ulama of the Salaf, then he mentioned, ثم إن هذا خلاف الذي حكيناه كان في سر الأول. That is khilaf was in the early days of Islam among the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, that they differ on this matter. Then he mentioned, ثم أجمع العلماء. Then there was a ijma, a consensus, an agreement between the ulama, بعد ذلك على أنه لا يجب الوضوء. That wudu is not compulsory. So the ulama, after a while, that they agree upon performing wudu for anything that has been cooked or been roasted, it does not nullify one wudu. That become the position of the ulama that they eventually agreed upon. Ibn Qudam rahimahullah, Ibn Qudam in his book Al-Mughni mentioned, لا نعلم اليوم, we do not know of that date, فيه خلاف, of any khilaf on this matter. So he mentioned, we do not know to this day that is any khilaf on this matter regarding if a person thinks that has been cooked, then it does not nullifies one wudu. And next matter to discuss, a second masala regarding ar-ridda and Islam. If a person have apostated from Islam, does this person wudu becomes invalid because of his apostasy? Then a khilaf also on this matter, and we'll discuss that further regarding imbab al-ghusl. So regarding concerning that, that will be discussed regarding that this matter regarding. So they mentioned that overall the ulama who take the position that the person who falls into a ridda, apostasy, have left the fold of Islam, ذهب إمام أحمد رحمه الله إلى أن الردة الإسلام من نواقض الوضوء, that the one who apostated from Islam, then this nullifies one wudu. Then of the ulama who take the position that بينما ذهب إمام مالك إمام شافعي وأصحاب الرحي الأحناف إلى أنها لا تنقل الوضوء, that ridda, apostasy, does not nullifies one wudu. That's a position taken by Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, and Ashab al-Rahi are of that view. And now Rahimah mentioned, وَبِهِ قال جمهور العلماء, that jumhur of the ulama, they are of that view. They mention يستدل هؤلاء بأن الأصل الطهارة, that the asl, the origins of tahara, the core rule of tahara, and يحكم لا يحكم, so the principle regarding tahara, لا يحكم بنقضها, that one does not nullifies one tahara إلا بالدليل, except with dalil. Then the last of those matters, that's so that we discussed that matter further, but قول الأنابلة, that qawl is qawi. Then the last matter that discussed regarding رطوبة الفرج المرأة, the last matter that is to be discussed regarding of these additional masail regarding nawaqil wudu, things that nullify one wudu. They discuss concerning rutuba, that type of discharge that a woman may have. So may have like a discharge at times that may come from a female private areas. So this is not haid, this is not nifas, this is any that's not like a water, that's not like some type of discharge that will come from some female, like some wetness. So may you have this, so they mentioned regarding concern a discussion between the ulama. Those who mention it does not nullify one wudu, as the Prophet ﷺ didn't indicate that this nullifies wudu, and those who mentioned that by way of qiyas, that they kind of somewhat all concerned to know that they put any discharge from the private area will nullify one's wudu. So that discharge sometimes is like some type of liquid that will come from a female, not in large quantity, may vary with one female or female, but they have this type of discharge, natural type of discharge that they will have from their private area. Does it nullify wudu or not? So it's the general rule, the ulama mentioned, a woman who experiences, for her to put something there to protect it, and does it nullify one wudu? I will mention there's a khilaf between the ulama regarding this particular matter. So they mentioned not from the normal nullifiers, but even of the ulama who can somewhat more inclined towards that it nullifies wudu, and of those who mentioned that there's no dalil that is explicit, that is clear, that this matter nullifies wudu. So based upon that, they see it as it does nullify wudu, as these things have occurred with the woman of throughout the centuries, and also women of the ladies of the Sahabiyat may have experienced this, and this matter was not per se mentioned to the Prophet ﷺ, nor the Prophet ﷺ discussed this matter. So they said this matter does not nullify one wudu, because there's no evidence regarding it being discussed. As for saying that anything that anything that comes from the private ear nullify wudu, then they include this discharge as a part of those things that come from this private ear. So by this, it nullifies one wudu. So you have cases where a woman, some may be more frequent than others, or larger in quantity than others. Then also you have that discussion. With this, inshallah ta'ala, we'll so with this we'll now end this discussion regarding Bab Nawaqil al-Wudu, as in the book Bulugh al-Maram min Adilat al-Ahkam by Hafiz Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah. So that inshallah ta'ala will end. وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذا السبيل والآخر الحمد لله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.